They say life is full of moments where injustice seems to rule everything, where the powerful crush the weak, where money silences voices, and where pain hides behind closed doors. This is the story of one of those moments, but it's also the story of how truth, even if delayed, finds its way into the light, and how justice can arrive when it seems impossible. It happened in a small town, the kind of place where everyone knows each other. There lived Clara, a humble woman, a hard worker, a mother of two who woke up before sunrise every morning to clean offices. Clara never had problems with anyone until one day her life took a devastating turn. Her boss, an influential man in the city, accused her of stealing money from the company. There was no proof, just his word against hers. But in a place where power is measured in contacts and favors, the word of the powerful weighs heavier than the truth of a working woman. Clara was fired, shamed, humiliated in her own neighborhood. Neighbors whispered, friends pulled away. Her children suffered the stigma of being the thief's kids, and everything, absolutely everything, collapsed around her. Injustice had struck with brutal force, and it looked like no one would ever hear her voice. But there is something injustice cannot erase: the dignity of someone who knows they are innocent. Clara refused to give up. She sought lawyers, knocked on doors, demanded to be heard. Many turned her away, some looked at her with suspicion, and a few even told her, "It's a lost battle. Against that man, you'll never win." But she pressed on, because she knew that if she stayed silent, she wouldn't just lose her job, she would lose her name, her honor, and her children's future. The process was long, exhausting, and cruel. The businessman had money to buy influence, to fabricate evidence, to manipulate witnesses. For years, Clara faced a system that seemed designed to protect the elite and crush the powerless. Each hearing was torture, each document a new wall to climb. Yet she never stopped showing up. She never stopped looking her judges in the eye. She never stopped repeating again and again, "I am innocent." The climax came when everything seemed lost. They were ready to close the case, ready to condemn her socially and legally. But then something unexpected happened. A young accountant who had worked at the company decided to speak out. For years, he had stayed silent out of fear of losing everything, but his conscience weighed more than his silence. He brought documents, showed records, and revealed the truth. The real thief was the businessman himself, the same man who had pointed his finger at Clara. The truth broke through the darkness like lightning. The judges had no choice but to recognize Clara's innocence and convict the true culprit. The businessman, once untouchable, ended up behind bars, and the town, the same town that had whispered and judged, was forced to look down in shame. The day Clara walked out of the courthouse acquitted, tears ran down her face. She had won something bigger than a trial. She had reclaimed her voice, her dignity, her right to walk with her head held high. Her children embraced her as if they had just defeated a giant. And in a way, they had. This story isn't just about Clara. It's about every person who has ever been crushed by injustice. It's about the invisible strength of those who only have their truth as a shield. It's about the message we must never forget. Justice may be late, but when it arrives, it shines bright. And maybe the greatest lesson is this: never underestimate the power of someone who refuses to give up. Because even in a world where the powerful always seem to win, there will always be a moment when truth breaks the chains. Today, Clara is back at work, not at the same company, but in her own small business she built from the ground up. Her children study, proud of a mother who never bowed to injustice. And though the scars remain, those scars tell a story worth repeating. That yes, it is possible to turn injustice into justice. So as this story closes, maybe the reflection only begins for us. How many times do we stay silent in the face of injustice, out of fear, convenience, or because we think nothing can be done? How many times do we look away while someone innocent carries a burden they don't deserve? Maybe the difference between a life destroyed by injustice and a life redeemed by justice lies in a single choice: not giving up. Because justice is not just a court ruling, it is the recognition of truth, the restoration of dignity, the ability to look at the world again without shame. Justice is ultimately the voice that tells us it's still worth believing, and that voice is what remains today. Clara's voice, which became the voice of everyone who has ever been or will be a victim of injustice, a voice that reminds us that even when it seems impossible, there is always a path for the scales to tip toward the right side, because injustice hurts, humiliates, and destroys. But when justice arrives, it heals, restores, and teaches. And in that moment, pain turns into strength, humiliation into pride, and destruction into hope. Never forget this: injustice may strike hard, but when justice finally breaks through, it strikes even harder.